So the first problem is a complete the square. I'll pause for a second and have you try to complete the square. Okay, we're back. And we factored out the 2, and we have an x squared plus 2x. But then, did you try to factor the 2 out of that? You shouldn't have. It will actually mess it up if you did. You have to not factor the last number. All right, now I have half n squared. Half of 2 is 1, 1 squared is 1. And I add 1 here and I subtract 1 in here. Here's the most common thing that kids forget. This 2 has to also be multiplied there. Did you remember that? 2x plus 1 quantity squared. That's negative 2 plus another negative 2 makes minus 4. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Cool, you remember this from yesterday. The one kid who wasn't here yesterday, I was hearing him say, I don't remember how to do this. But you do because you were here yesterday. And if we just touch it a couple more times between now and when you get to calculus, you'll remember it for calculus too. It just has to happen. Like you can't do something for really hard for a week and then remember it forever. But it works way better to remember something once and then remember it a week later and then remember it a month later and then remember it 3 months later. Then it'll stick. All right, there's actually been research on that. All right, so what's the other stuff from Quadratics B that we haven't talked about yet? The big topic is this. You will want this for notes because even though I'm telling you today, you don't have the final until 5 days from now. You're going to forget between now and 5 days. So if you write this down and then you look at it right before the final, that'd be really smart. A ball is thrown in the air and then comes back down again. Let's say it starts 3 feet off the ground. Actually, let's go with meters because that's the equation we used was meters. And if that starts 3 meters off the ground, then I can tell you the beginning and the end of the equation that we'd use for that. Y equals negative 4.9 t squared, where t is the time. That's the beginning always because we do these on Earth. And on Earth, the gravitational constant is involved, and that's, I think, it's negative 9.8, but then you're supposed to divide it by 2 in this formula. If you're into physics, you'll know what I'm talking about. That's how you get the negative 4.9. But if you saw this, and it said this, what's the 10t and what's the 3? We already covered the 3. What's the 3? Wilford, what's the 3?
It's where the ball is thrown from.
Yes, another way to say that is the starting height. Because see, this over here is height. Okay, now what questions could we ask about this? The easiest question of them all would be to write this equation and tell me what the t is. Or sorry, tell me what the 10 is. It's the velocity, yes. And technically, it's the initial velocity. Are you taking physics? Okay, you have a good brain for physics then. So, the initial starting velocity. Do you get the ball isn't going to keep going the same speed once you release it? Does a ball just keep going the same speed forever? Of course not. It slows down. But it starts at 10 meters per second. All right, that's the 10. The 3 is how high up it is. The negative 4.9 is how the equation will always start, and that's gravity on Earth. Okay, of course, if we were doing this on Mars, that first number would be different. Do you think Mars has more gravity or less? It has less gravity than here. All right, let's get back to, what if they ask you for that spot? There could be 2 different names they could give for it. If you think of one and you're pretty sure, say it. What? Louder. Vertex, that's one of the names. What's the other name you could say for that? Max, very good. It's the highest that goes, so it's the maximum. Maximum or vertex, there's an equation for that. I said it and you wrote it yesterday, but you might not remember it because I keep saying that it's the vertex, and I'm not saying that it's on the axis of symmetry, because it is though, right? Do you remember the formula for that? If you do, you should write it by that arrow. Because if they ask you for the highest the ball ever went, or when did the ball reach its maximum? You'd want that little equation that runs right through there. Now, if you don't remember it, and I even told you yesterday, what does that tell you about 5 days from now? You're not going to remember this 5 days from now, so maybe the night before the final, you should review this kind of stuff. Be honest. How many of you knew I was talking about x equals negative b over 2a? Be honest. If you had that, all right, that's like 8 of you. The rest of you, you need these notes to remind yourself. Right before the final. Oh yeah, I would go negative b over 2a. And if you're like, I don't even know what that means. Well, negative b would be negative 10, because that's what b is. And the a is negative 4.9. So you could stick in these numbers really easy. Don't do it right now, but you could, and you could figure out the x, which is the time. In this case, x equals time. And t is x in the same equation. You don't have to write all this, but it's true. This thing along the bottom is usually the x-axis, right? And it's time in this case. And so this x equals negative b over 2a could be said t equals negative b over 2a. Don't overstress yourself. I'm just trying to say x is time in this case. All right. Then there's another kind of question we could ask, and you don't need any special formula for this. If I allowed you to round, would you please figure out where the ball is at time 1? Do it in your head. You don't need a calculator. Just round it and do it in your head. Time 1. Where's the ball? Remember, you have a partner that you're going to be working with for about 15-20 minutes on a quiz. You know who it's going to be. You can probably tell from where you're sitting. Would you please talk to them about what you think you should do to figure out where is it at time 1? Talk to that person.
Just plug it in. Yeah.
You're right. Good job. Okay. So at time 1, you'd put in a 1 right here. And that means 1 squared, which is 1, times negative 4.9. And I said to round it, so that's about negative 5. Plus 10, which would be 5. Plus 3 is 8. Who raise your hand if you had 8? All right. Do you get what I just did there? I just stuck in t as 1. And I got y is 8. So that means at 8 meters, wherever that is, I don't even know exactly where it is on the graph, like where to put the dot. All right. Last kind of question they could ask you is, when did the ball hit the ground? And that's that spot. You see how that's a when the ball hit the ground? It's a time. What's the height at that exact moment? 0. So y equals 0 right there. But the question is, what's x equal to? And there's a formula for that. You either know it or you don't. It's not a new formula you've never heard before. It's a formula you've used a million times. There's even a song about this formula. Write that formula in there. You're taking good notes for yourself so that on the day before the final, you can do a quick peruse of this page and remind yourself the key stuff. X equals negative b, plus or minus square root. I'm going to use a different color here. B squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Why did I use a different color for b squared minus 4ac? Because it's a thing. What is it? Discriminant. If you did not know that that's a discriminant, what would you do if the test question said find the discriminant? So if you're not good at that, you should take notes. Discriminant. Okay, and if that's the discriminant, I'm going to take a second to remind you what it tells us. Do you get that the discriminant, if it came out negative, you'd be doing the square root of a negative, and that means that the whole answer can't exist in the real world? So, if d is less than 0, no solutions. Just kind of like no bot. There's no solutions if d is negative. Well, what if D isn't negative? What if D is 0? Or what if D is positive? Would you please write down? Recall for yourself, what number of solutions would you have in those two cases? There's a different part of your brain that does stuff versus just listens to it. The listening part sucks at memory. You'll remember 10% of what I said today. It'd be amazing if you could remember 100% of everything I said today. I think that's going to be possible with digital brain implants. Not saying I'm going to get one even. I'm still deciding. If I see my memory start to go though, I'm getting one. But back to the digital brain implant. You'd be able to completely recall everything I said because you'd be recording right now. And then you could search your digital memory with an AI assistant and say, what did Mr. Server say about this? And the AI assistant would search your digital memory and listen to my video in 5 seconds and then come back and say, he said this. In fact, you could probably play the little clip for you. All inside your brain. Whoa, crazy. All right, did you know that D equals 0 would give you one solution? I want you to think about why. If this is actually 0, then plus and minus 0 are going to be the exact same answer. That's why there's only one answer, because plus 0 and minus 0 would be the same thing. That's why there's one answer. And it leaves you with this. For some kids, this will be a revolution. You just realized it. That's the vertex formula. See? If there is only one solution, it'll be the vertex. It'll be the maximum or minimum point of the parabola. If D is 0, there's one solution, it's the vertex. And last but not least, two solutions for if it's bigger than 0. Because then you're going to do plus it and minus it, and that'll be two separate answers. Okay. That was a lot. And that gets us through most of quadratics part B, which is like the harder stuff. But one of the best ways to practice that right now would be to take some questions that are about some of the things I just talked about and some of the things I talked about yesterday and the day before, and we're going to take a 5-question quiz at this time. So clear off your desk and set something to write with. For the purposes of the video, we took a quiz that I'm going to post in my Schoology page, and then after that, all you had to do for today was there's a Schoology quiz that you can take as your homework. There's only one of them that you have to do, the others say optional. And you don't have to do the worksheet PDF in there. All right, that's all I got for today.